On this episode, we're going to be talking with one of the most accomplished ultra-endurance athletes in the world. He completed 50 Ironman distance triathlons in 50 days in all 50 states. The Iron Cowboy, James Lawrence, welcome to the show. Like most people, when they first meet you, I ask myself, why does this guy do this?
In fact, I joke all the time that I'm an average white Canadian, which I believe that I am. I just have an ability to work incredibly hard. One of my challenges was like do something intentionally difficult every single day, because when real life moment happens, you're ready to do it. And the true secret to endurance racing and life is...
Welcome to the Leela Brada Show.
Brought to you by Lean Body, the #1 protein shake in gyms across America.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Leela Brada Show. I'm here to help you improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health. On every episode, I'm going to have someone here who can bring something to the table that we can all learn from. The show is growing fast and becoming very popular thanks to you. So if you're enjoying the content, would you please hit the like button now and forward the show to just one person? That's how we can keep growing, and that's how I can keep bringing you content that you can grow from. On this episode, we're going to be talking with one of the most accomplished ultra-endurance athletes in the world. He has achieved several world records, including in 2015 when he completed 50, that's right, 50 Ironman distance triathlons in 50 days in all 50 states. Guys, listen, those Ironman distance triathlons consist of a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and, as if that wasn't enough, a 26.2-mile run, often taking more than 12 and a half hours to complete. But that wasn't enough. To test his limits, he next completed 100 Ironman distance triathlons in 100 days, and he did this at the age of 45. I think that you'll agree that he's earned the name that he's known by, the Iron Cowboy. James Lawrence, welcome to the show.
What's up, Lee, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it to be here. And yeah, let's get into it.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's so great to have you here. James, I want to hear about your story. You know, how did you get to the point in your life where you decided to do this? Were you always an endurance athlete?
No, was never an endurance athlete. I enjoyed running as a kid. I remember very fondly doing 10K races with my dad in Calgary, Canada. And I remember the day. I remember the day that I beat my dad. I was very young, but I ran a 39-minute 10K.
Wow.
6.2 miles, just as a young kid. And but just fell in love with sports, played every single sport I could get my hands on, and then eventually gravitated towards wrestling full-time through high school and 2 years post-high school. And that became my foundation of just mental toughness. I think every young person should either have to do 2 years of military service or 2 years of MMA fighting, just so that they get the discipline, the hard work, body control. There's so much that comes from one of those two things.
Brother, there's so much, there really is, there's so much to that, pushing your physical limits, you know, and James, we met at a motivational seminar put on by our good friend Steve Rosenberg, and we were both speakers there. And like most people, when they first meet you and heard about your amazing accomplishments, I asked myself, why? Why does this guy do this?
Yeah, well, initially, things always seem to take a path of their own if you're just doing things for the right reason and chasing your passions and just doing things that you love. And as we started on this journey, it was just running with my wife. And we found the sport of triathlon together, and the community was amazing. And we were just really enjoying this kind of escape from real life. And as things progressed, I just really started to deep dive into it. I was having success. And I started coaching athletes years later after I started, helping the newest member to the community kind of accelerate their learning curve, maybe experience it faster than I was. But then one thing led to another, and we saw an opportunity to raise money for charity while we were racing. And I also wanted to push myself physically and mentally. And so we started to tackle bigger challenges. The first one started in 2010. with the most half Ironmans, all official events that we could do. We did 22 races in 30 weeks. And we were doing it to raise money to build dams in Africa. And so
Wow. Nice.
the project was called Try and Give a Dam. And
I
so we had
love the
a
name.
lot of fun with that name. And just really, that was the beginning of our journey where we were starting to really push the boundaries of what people were doing at the time. And for me, it was just a lot of fun. As you know, I grew up in Canada, had a great, sports career as a young man. But then you get married, have kids, and you're like, okay, where's my outlet? What can I do competitively as an adult?
Right.
And triathlon provided that outlet for us.
Okay, and so triathlons are one of those things that serious athletes test themselves with at some point in their life. I have a number of friends that have tried triathlons, but what was that critical point, that inflection point where you said to yourself, you know what, I am going to run, X number of these over the next 30 days. I'm going to attempt something nobody's ever done. What led to that point?
Yeah, I think I really caught the bug in my very first ever Ironman that I did. At the time, it was called Vineman. It was in California through the wine country, and did everything I could to train properly. And it was just like in love with the sport at that point. I'd been racing for several years. And when I did the Ironman, it was just such an emotional training block. It was such an emotional day. With a race of that distance, 140.6 miles, like you go through some emotions, some
Yeah.
highs, some lows. And for me, I crossed that finish line and I had learned a ton. I had made mistakes. I had done a lot of things right. But just had an amazing experience. And I was like, I can do that better.
Now,
And
did
that
it
just,
occur to you at that point, though? It's like, okay, I've got all this emotion welling up in me. I can do that better. But did it occur to you at that point, I can do that again tomorrow, and I can do that
yeah,
again the
no.
next day?
Yeah,
Man,
that wasn't even on the radar yet.
mind-blowing, dude.
That first Ironman was in 2008, and I didn't do the really big consecutive challenge until 2015.
Okay.
And in between 8 and 15, there was two world records: the half Ironman world record in 2010, and then the full Ironman world record in 2012, which was 30 events, all official races. In a calendar year. And so it was 30 events through 11 countries.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that was our second world record. And that was an amazing journey.
Yeah, that sounds like a really amazing journey. James, you have a book, which I'm going to hold up here for all of us. It's called The Iron Cowboy, Redefine the Impossible, and it's available on Amazon. I got my copy. I started reading it. It's just an amazing book. I hope you guys can get a copy of that. And it goes into great detail about the challenges that you faced while you were going through your daily triathlons. What did you do to prepare yourself for this? Because one thing is to prepare yourself for one Ironman, but when you know you're going to be running 50 consecutive Ironmans, I mean, how do you even start getting ready for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you can't get ready for a 7-week endurance challenge. You just try to position yourself and be the most fit, most durable person, athlete you can be heading into the challenge. And so we started this in May of 2015. And so as part of my training and lead up, I trained specifically 2 years for this challenge. And I did a race late 2014 in Cozumel, Mexico. And it's still today my fastest Ironman that I've ever done. And I knew at that point, okay, I can do this. And so now for 50 days, I just need to throttle that way back. And so I just tried to become the most fit I could and then manage chaos, confusion, fatigue for 7 weeks and 7,000 miles.
Yeah, I can only imagine, because we all have this mental chatter that's always going on in our minds. What goes through your mind when you're out there for so many hours running and swimming and biking? How do you keep yourself going?
Yeah, just in one Ironman or even in a training block, you have every single conversation you've ever had with yourself. This sport is not for the weak of mind because you're alone a lot. You're in your headspace a lot. And kind of a funny story, but the way I came to the United States was Calgary's world famous for what's called the Calgary Stampede. And at the time they were holding a contest to see who could ride the giant Ferris wheel for the entire 10 days of the Stampede. And their objective was complete boredom. And as I was on the ride, I was in the contest. And as I'm on the ride, I'm watching people get off and quit. And it hit me years later, after I was further down on my journey, my path, that people simply were losing the conversation they were having with themselves. They weren't comfortable sitting in a space of silence. And I sat on the Ferris wheel for 10 days. I won the contest, and that's ultimately what got me to Utah to visit a friend, and I never went home. But endurance racing is about managing those conversations you have with your head. And some days it's brilliant and easy, and other days it is dark. And the true secret to endurance racing and life is winning those conversations that we have with ourselves, because you've got the one side that's the positive conversation and then the negative conversation. In fact, we just did a mastermind call last night with our team, and can't remember the exact number. Oh, I do know. It was 85%. 15% is the space in our brain that occupies the positive talk, and 85% is the space that occupies the negative talk. And so that is staggering difference. And so the importance in controlling that narrative is staggering.
It's just
because there's such an overwhelming amount of negative that goes through our brains.
It's just a key thing, and you know, I've actually have discussed this with some of my guests on the podcast before, you know, but it almost seems like we've got this thermostat in our natural setting is to look for the danger or the downside in every situation. I think it comes back to some kind of a survival instinct. What's lying around the corner, what could possibly go wrong, and that, you know, in this modern era, that turns into negative chatter, and so much of that is pushing it out. And what I have found, James, is that, because people ask me, you know, how do you stay positive? Well, you got to keep pushing the negative out, because the negative is going to happen, you know, but you got to keep pushing that negative chatter out. Let me turn our attention for a second. Let me ask you this.
Just real quick in that vein.
Yeah.
One of the keys to keeping the negative chatter out is paying attention to what we consume. And if you'll find the more negative chat is in direct correlation to what we're consuming on a daily basis and who we're surrounding ourselves with.
Yes.
And so if you want that positive side to be a constant, you've got to be consuming positive things. You got to be reading, you got to be you got to be doing all these things on the positive.
Yes.
Because it's an energy, vibration, and exchange. And trust me, man, what you consume is who you become, and that's what you focus on.
That is very well put. What you consume is what you become. Let's remember that, guys, because I'll tell you that most of us just soak our brains in media and in social media every day, and it's like you think that the world is coming apart, you know, if that's all of the input that you're giving yourself. So that's very, very well put. James, when you were doing your Ironman distance triathlons day after day, how did you recover at the end of each day?
Yeah, that is the secret to success. In fact, in our coaching program, we talk about how high you can soar. And this will resonate with you in terms of your career. You have to, with the acronym SOAR, stress, optimize, adapt, and recover. And you have to stress yourself in an optimal environment so that through recovery, you can adapt. And so that's the key, especially in bodybuilding and tearing your muscles and repairing them. And that only happens through those recovery moments to give them an opportunity to repair and grow. And so same thing with endurance racing. It's super paramount. And in fact, outside of what you see in the media and our documentary and a lot of stuff, we focus on those big moments where there isn't really an opportunity to recover. But outside of those big challenges, man, we have a high emphasis on recovery. I do 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. We have a hyperbaric chamber at the house. We have a red light therapy bed. I just stepped off my vibration plate to coat all my cells with new mucus and get them flowing again. I do IV therapy. I mean, there's just so many things that we do to stay on top of it, because recovery is everything. And if you're not recovered, you're eventually leading to injury and burnout, and injury in sport and burnout in life. And so, man, if you're not prioritizing nutrition, sleep, recovery, you're missing the mark, and you're eventually gonna exhaust and expire.
100%.
And for us,
100%.
For us during those big challenges, the 50 and the 100, it was just hold on, baby. Hold on. Hopefully you've done the work and just you tap into your mental toughness, all those tools and tricks that we've learned over 20 years of doing this. because really there was no recovery. During the 50, we averaged less than 4 hours a night asleep
That's
for
incredible.
7 weeks.
Now
And
I heard that you actually fell asleep while you were eating.
I fell asleep all the time while I was eating. I mean, they would stick me like, so how I got from state to state is one of the team members would drive a van. I was trying to sleep on the floor of the moving van as we're going to the next state. And every single time they would get to the next destination and I had food all over me and I'd fallen asleep eating. But the worst part was falling asleep while you're riding your bike.
Oh my gosh.
Because when you do that, you crash. And that happened more than I wanted it to.
You actually fell
and then
asleep while you were riding your bike.
One time I fell asleep it was in Tennessee. It was 106 degrees outside. I lost concentration for 2 seconds. I just got lulled to sleep and fell asleep and crashed.
Wow.
On my back. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody.
Right.
But that's the level of fatigue that we were experiencing.
Yeah, it's amazing. You brought up nutrition, so I'm going to touch on that because there's a number of our viewers that are really big on their nutrition plans. Will you tell us about yours? How do you fuel your body?
Yeah, I mean, currently I'm really big on macros. And so I do a certain caloric intake, and then I monitor my fats, my proteins, and my carbs. And I put the highest emphasis category in protein. And so if I hit my caloric intake and my protein, the other two can waver a little bit. And then depends if I'm leading up to a race and I want to be a more powerful weight, then I'll go into a deficit a little bit. And then otherwise I'm doing maintain. But it was interesting because after the Conquer 100, it took me over 2 years to recover. And I got up to about 196 pounds. And I'm 5'8", and so those were not the good kind of pounds.
Okay.
And so I'm back to health, clear health now. And I've got a huge racing year, a couple world championships later this year. And in 6 weeks, I'm headed to South Africa to do an 8-day mountain bike stage race. And in cycling, it has everything to do with power and weight ratio. And so, dude, it would not bode me well to be 195 pounds going to South Africa. And so I've really been tracking my nutrition, making sure that I'm in that deficit, but consuming high quality proteins and nutrients. As of this morning, I'm down to 173, and I've got about 6 more pounds to be where I want to be comfortably for that race.
And is this type of race something new to you? Have you raced in this format before?
Yeah, I've actually done this exact race in 2019. It's, like I said, 8 days through South Africa, starts in Cape Town, is the most grueling mountain bike race out there. It's known as the Tour de France of cycling. It's a partner race. It's super cool. It's with one of our athletes that we coach in South Africa. His name's Mario. And it'll be our second time doing it. I'm just super pumped to toe that line once again and see what we're made of as a couple old men.
That's great. Now you said old man. I don't believe that for a second, but how old are you?
I'll be 48 this year. Yep.
It's amazing. You know, what an inspiration that is to us. You know, and all of us that are watching this that are over 40, you know, you're 48 years old and you're doing things that are impossible for people in their 20s to do, you know, so kudos to you on that. Now,
I appreciate that. And I just want to say that I am on a journey now where I am tapping into my potential and my fitness. And I believe I will PR in the Ironman distance and other races on my 50th year of living.
That's a phenomenal goal to set, and I bet you that you will accomplish it. Now, I've heard you say that one of your biggest pet peeves is when people call you gifted, and you know, I think that I know why it peeves you, because they're blowing off the hard work and the mental toughness that you're having to put into it.
Yeah, it does piss me off. But it's only because that person is either reading a headline or making assumptions. And I've had a lot of tests done. In fact, I just did a live yesterday on my Instagram as of this recording. And so you can go back and try to find it. But I had an epigenetic test done. And everybody has different epigenetics and advantages and whatnot, but there really wasn't anything that was a standout. Like this dude is like in the top 1% of what. No, in fact, I joke all the time that I'm an average white Canadian, which I believe that I am. I just have an ability to work incredibly hard and not put limits, self-imposed limits on myself. And even bigger than that, I don't listen to what everybody else believes is possible for me, because they can't possibly know who I am, what my experience is, what I've done in the past and what I'm capable of doing in the future.
So I've heard you say that now several times. Number one is mental toughness. Let's talk about mental toughness.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's everything. If you can't control your mind, if you can't control your emotions, if you can't control or manage doing hard things, like when real life happens to you, you're gonna crawl into the corner and start crying. And really, this is the number one question I get when I come off stage. I've spoken in 56 countries around the world, and it's how do I become more mentally tough? And it's only through experiences that you gain that knowledge that belief that you can do things. And as you continually show up, all of a sudden more becomes possible.
Right.
And we'll just use the pandemic as an example. That was a tragic time in our world's history. But it was fascinating to like pause and take a look around and see who was handling the pandemic well and who wasn't handling it well, and who was being driven by fear and who was able to remove the emotions and navigate it differently. And it was just interesting to see, okay, that person's done some hard things. This is the first hard thing this person's ever experienced. And so this is one of my challenges from stage all the time is like, do something intentionally difficult every single day, because when the real life moment happens, you're ready to do it. And I'll give you a high level example of this. After we did the 50 Ironmans through 50 states, I was on a TV show in Fiji called The World's Toughest Race. It was 10 days long. It was a Mark Burnett production, map and compass navigation. Bear Grylls was the host. And they kept interviewing me, and they so badly wanted me to say that this was the hardest thing that I have ever done.
Right.
And I'm like, guys, listen, this is a 10-day challenge. I've done a 50-day challenge.
Right.
And the 50-day challenge was way harder than this one.
Right. Right.
And so the purpose of me sharing that is do things in your life that are so extraordinarily hard that the things that everybody else thinks is hard is a breeze and easy for you to navigate.
I love that.
And so I continually push that envelope and raise the ceiling. Normal life, man, it's easy.
Yeah, it's
easy.
just it's the paradigm, isn't it? Your paradigm shifts. Now, so
Yeah.
in your book, and I'll hold it up again for you guys, and I'm going to encourage you to run out on Amazon and buy the Iron Cowboy. It's an amazing book. You mentioned, and I'm going to quote you: people came out to glimpse an average guy who had dared the impossible and went home believing they could do their own impossible. So that leads me to this question: is it possible for anyone to develop mental toughness?
Yes, 100%. In fact, our next book is called Iron Hope. And it's because our team's willingness to suffer intentionally gives people hope on their journey to either deal with things that they haven't asked for or tackle things that they never once thought possible.
I love that.
And so it's interesting to watch different things play out and whatnot. And it's always fascinating for me to go, it's impossible until somebody does it. And, the 4-minute mile was broken years ago, and it was a mark that was said to be humanly impossible. And within a very short period of time, a guy did it again. The second person did it. And it's just because somebody else paved the way for them. And in fact, today, high school kids are breaking that 4-minute mile because somebody else has done it. And I love it that people chase the standard that we set. And I kind of joke all the time, like I set standards, other people try to break my records.
That's great.
And that's the way I encourage people to show up in their lives, is stop comparing themselves to what everybody else is doing, and raise the ceiling in your own expectations as to what's possible.
That's wonderful. Now, I'm going to quote you one more time. Completing a journey takes as many steps as there are steps in the journey. And you don't get to the end by applying lessons. You get there by making that decision to take each step until there are no steps left to take. To do that, you need nothing more than the belief that you can. This is a quote from your book. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it absolutely 10,000% starts with belief and conviction. And then after you have that belief and conviction, you have to set a goal so big that it scares you. And then here's the asterisk. You have to respect the enormity of that goal and then put in the work that it takes to accomplish it. And what I'm seeing on a high level today on Instagram and social media is people get inspired, they get motivated, they get empowered, they set this big goal and they rush to it. and they don't give the journey the respect that it deserves, and they fail every single time because they're trying to get there. They're trying to fast track it. They're trying to cheat the system. And when they fail, this is where the spiral happens. Now, because they failed, mentally, they start associating themselves with a failure, where had they had some patience, taken the time and accumulated those wins along the way, success breeds success and confidence breeds confidence. And so if you can display patience and discipline, you will win every single time. You'll get to that big goal. Maybe not at the time frame you want to, but you will eventually get there, and you will be one of the people standing on the top of that mountain.
I love that saying, respect the journey.
Yeah.
You have to put the time and the effort in. You have a new documentary coming out. We were talking about this before. It's called Conquer 100. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'm super proud of our current documentary. It's on Amazon Prime. It's been on Netflix. It's on Peacock. It's on Apple. It's on YouTube. And it's had an unbelievable run. In fact, still today, people will book me not knowing about the 100-day challenge that we did, all based off the 50-day through 50 states. And so it's been an amazing blessing to our lives. But then we went out and doubled it. And we call that kind of project Defy Logic. I thought to myself, okay, if I can remove chaos and put systems and team in place, could we double what everybody said was impossible? Can we defy logic? And then, so 2021, we went out and did that. We did 100 consecutive Ironmans, 14,000 miles, no days off, and just executed at an extremely high level. And I am out of my mind excited to release the new documentary. It is finished. I've seen it, and I am very proud of it. It's going to come out March 27th of this year, 2024. It's going to be a private red carpet screening at Sundance, Utah, at the resort.
That is
and
exciting.
Then it'll be placed on the streaming platforms, and we are pumped, man.
That
This
is
thing
super
is going
exciting.
to give people hope and encouragement, and just really excited about it.
I will be watching that one, Conquer 100. And you said it's going to be on all of the major streaming services?
Yes, sir.
That's super exciting. So let me ask you this. Any words of advice for all of us who are facing our own challenges and struggles in life? Just something to take away from this podcast that they can keep in mind.
Yeah, the biggest thing and the hardest thing I'm seeing right now in society is the ability to start, because we're so scared of judgment for being terrible at something. And the reality is every journey has a humble beginning, and every pro or expert you see has been doing it for a very long time. But social media is crippling people with fear of judgment because everybody's the expert, everybody's the coach, everybody's perfect and all these things. And it's just not reality. And so I want to encourage people, it's okay to just start on your journey and start to accumulate those little wins. Get out of your own way. And trust me, this may sound a little bit harsh, but nobody cares. Like, nobody freaking cares, because everybody's so busy worried about what they're doing, how they look, what they're like, nobody cares. So just start showing up, and it's going to be okay. And eventually you're going to start succeeding, and then people are going to start watching and paying attention because you're so great.
That's awesome advice. James, this has been great. And I'm really grateful that you've had this time with us today. And it's just so inspiring, and it helps us all to stretch our imaginations, in terms of what is possible in our own lives. Guys, be sure to get James Lawrence's book, The Iron Cowboy, Redefine the Impossible, on Amazon. You'll be glad that you did. And James, where can our viewers find out more about you and your services and your programs? Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, our website is ironcowboy.com, super easy. And then my social media, I'm most active on Instagram, and it's Iron Cowboy James, all one word. We'd love to have you. If you have any questions about what we do, why we do it, programs we're having, retreats we're doing, races we put on, we're very busy. We're super engaged. I answer all my own DMs. It'll be me or my daughter that does it. And so, yeah, just reach out to us and engage. We'll gladly interact.
You're going to be busy with everybody reaching out to you. Guys, remember
Awesome.
to look for James' new documentary, Conquer 1000. Conquer 1000. Coming out.
Conquer 100.
Sorry, Conquer 100. See, you've already stretched my imagination.
There you go. It's possible, baby.
It's Conquer 100. I'm going to be watching it. Help us to grow the Lee Labrada Show by sharing this podcast with just one other person. Would you do it now? And be sure to hit the subscribe button. Leave your comments and feedback below. All right, you guys, stay motivated, get up, and look up. God bless you.
The Lee Labrada Show.
Voices in my head imprison me. Wanna hold me down, but I'm on board. You're the light that's cutting through my pain. You're moving me